And now, from the Sunnybrook Ballroom in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, it's the Bring 'em Out podcast with your hosts, Joel Richardson and Alan Hill.
Hey everybody, we're here at the Sunnybrook Ballroom inside the podcast studio with another episode of Bring 'em Out. I'm Alan Hill, here with Soul Joel himself, Joel Richardson. Today we have a very special guest, comedian Tim Krompier.
How you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Tim and I go back a while.
I can tell just watching you guys interact. I can't wait to hear the origin story here.
Dude, well, so he said it off the air that he called into my original podcast, The Comedy Point, and was on the radio. Tim's been working on radio for years, and we reconnected at Chris Monte's wedding. And he's been headlining shows ever since. That was probably, 2016? But almost 10 years, basically, 2015
At least,
maybe?
yeah. I don't know when he got married, but I remember Joel was there. I didn't know what he looked like. I only knew him through the radio.
Oh, you hadn't met in person at that
No,
point.
I think maybe on like...
Not black.
No. Maybe on Facebook, I know what your face looked like, and they were like, oh, that's Joel from Soul Joel's. I've emailed that guy.
Yeah.
And he never got back to me. I'm like, I'm going to go say hi to him. So I walked over, and then the first thing he says to me, he goes, Tim Krompier, I never emailed you back. I'm so sorry. I'm going to email you next week. Yeah. And I went, dude, don't worry about it. It's
dude, that's
cool.
so
like,
Joel.
I send out 50 emails a day looking for work. No one emails you back. I'm like, it's all good. And you were like, no. I should have booked you, and I never did. And I'm like, all right. And then like a week later, he emailed me a date. For one of your and that was no club then. It was just those were just like, you had rooms.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is awesome.
Dude, the same person. Dude, and it probably was Chris Roach who came up to me and was like, that's Tim Krompier. You need to use him. And
all right.
Yeah. And I like a couple minutes later, that's when I was like, I know what this is going to be.
Dude, and Joel makes these crazy leaps in his head. Tell him about who's our buddy from John Zaluga, when Zaluga hit you up. Do you remember this? John just hit him up to say hi. Okay?
Yeah.
And what ensued is very similar to your tale with him.
I was like, hey, man, do you want to open up for Ben Bailey next month? He goes, yeah, but that's not why I called. I was like, oh, it's great to hear from you, man. Do you want to do like a live podcast with your podcast? Yeah, that'd be great. But do you know I'm a writer-producer for Impractical Jokers? We want to put together a show there. I go, oh, that's great. Let's do that.
That works.
Three for one.
Yeah. I go, that'd be fantastic.
Now I feel bad. I never call with that much to offer.
No.
I'm like, how's your nieces?
Yeah. No, dude.
How's your sister doing? I don't know.
Yeah. No, dude. What I love about Tim is no matter what situation, and I put him in a bunch of different situations. Mm-hmm. Dude, crushes no matter what, man.
Beautiful.
Dude, it could be the casino, Elks Lodge Country Club, obviously.
That's right.
That's true.
That's right.
Yeah.
You got to dress for the country club. And the Elks Lodge.
Yeah, he's a colorful.
I walk in the country club. They're like, "Oh, he's one of us." I walk into the Elks Lodge. They're like, "He must be the comedian."
Dude, he's a colorful chameleon.
That's right.
I wear shirts and I like white sneakers. I'm like Paul Lynde if he liked pussy. That shouldn't.
Yeah, Hollywood Squares.
But they're not always that good. You told me you had one of the biggest hell gigs recently.
Not through you, though.
Not through me.
I'll say this. Even Joel.
And that's why I got out of performing.
Yeah.
I did not frame that.
This is a great story. This just happened because Joel said.
I dished him the ball, but I dropped it.
Yeah. Totally.
Check. So, by the way, not Joel.
This gig, so I get a call to do a gig. Long story short on that end, a guy that knew somebody from another gig I did called me, said we're doing a benefit for Wounded Warriors, and it's at a union hall, and we have an hour in between, and we thought we'd do comedy. Everybody recommended you. I said, great. I gave him a price. He said, sure. I said, cash. He said, sure. I was like, great. I got an opener, Brian McKenna. I called Brian. I had just been texting Brian. We were texting about like the Knicks. I'm like, hey, you want to do a gig on the blah blah? Yes, sure. So he comes. He's like, so what is this? I go, I don't know. It's like a benefit at like a union hall. I figured it's like an Elks Lodge, like a small little whatever. We get there. It's a huge facility. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And we get in the parking lot, and I'm like, you notice there's a lot of trucks? He's like, yeah. I'm like, it's like, I said, are we in a parking lot, or is this a Dodge dealership? It was like all Dodge trucks.
Okay.
Ford F-150.
Yeah, it was like a lot of camouflage paint. I'm like, oh, cool.
Like a rock is
So
he playing in the background.
Welcome, brother.
I'm dressed like this, except a little gayer.
I do not believe that.
You're not gonna believe it. I had actually a sweater over it.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
With a tie, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh,
White
wow.
sneakers, black golf pants.
Oh, the tie. Now it makes sense.
Well, I don't know. I don't even remember if I had. This is only a week ago, but I'm blacking it out.
Right.
We walk in and I have like a wool peacoat kind of long one. Brian's got one on too that's a little shorter. We both have glasses on. We walk in. There's 500 people in this huge room, all like wearing camouflage hunting stuff. Guns, 9mm in their pockets.
Ding, ding.
9mm pockets. We don't make it past 5 feet from the front door. And two guys in orange shirts run over to us that are like working there, and they're like, "You're the comics, right?" And we're like, "Yeah." Okay, that's what we thought. Okay, they bring us to a table, and we didn't even see this, but when we got past the crowd, on the whole other side of the room was like a little like convention of like tables for like, there was an NRA recruitment table where there was NRA guys with guns, and they looked at us like, no, we don't even
don't even bother.
we don't even want you to.
Yeah.
No, you don't get guns. And then there was a knife guy selling hunting knives. There was a taxidermy guy who, not like little chickens, he had like bears and cougars and shit, all like big. And there was a guy selling flamethrowers.
What?
Yeah,
And he actually sold one.
yeah, one got bought. It was on the table next. Like people were buying flamethrowers. There was an R-15 like a machine gun on like a stand, like you were like shooting in a movie, and we're sitting there, and then maybe like 10 minutes, we're just looking at all the stuff, like, oh yeah, cool.
It's a lot to take in.
And no one will talk to us.
500 people.
Nobody. Everyone's just looking at us. The people.
How many females?
Oh, that's it. There's maybe 3 women at the whole thing.
3 out of 500. Not bad.
In the audience, and then maybe
Not bad.
7 more that were just working, like at the bar and stuff.
They just let him into the Union Hall right before the pandemic.
Yeah. So I'm like, what? So then the guy that booked me was an older guy. Couldn't have been nicer. He's like, yeah. My son told me you're the comedians. I go, yeah. He goes, shh. Yeah. He goes, just so you know, everybody thought you were the feds. Like, what? He's like, we thought you were the feds. You came in, peak coats, the glasses, guys. So, this is the hunting world, like on a hunting clubs. I'm like, oh, I just thought it was for Wounded Warriors. He goes, well, it is, but it's also, he goes, and we thought you were the feds. And I go, why would the feds come here? And he's like, well, we have guns and we also have alcohol. And they're very like crazy about guns and alcohol being in the room. He's like, they, Hochul, the governor of New York, she's crazy now with that whole guns and booze can't be in the same room. And I'm like, and at this point, I'm just like, yeah, that bitch.
Yeah, hell yeah.
She's crazy.
Yep.
But inside, you're like, I get it.
Yeah.
Dude, it's like joining the Aryans when you're in prison. You can do what you gotta do.
Yeah. And that's how I felt.
It was one or the other.
And Brian's not talking at all. Brian's just white. Like, oh my. So I go to the guy. I go, yeah, but you got guns. I go, but there's no bullets here, right? He goes, no, there's no bullets. I go, yeah, who cares? You need bullets. He goes, yeah. I'm like, yeah. Again, tie, knitted sweater.
Dude, yes.
So they go, yeah, sit where you want. I go, oh, okay. So we sit with 2 guys who look like they just got out of prison. And I felt like when I'm sitting there and I go, Brian, I want my opening line to be, it's so nice to be here at the January 6th insurrection reunion. It's so great. I mean, the shaman couldn't make it. He was having his hood waxed. I said, but of course I did. Brian's like, you open that, I swear to God, you'll be a legend, and we'll get shot right away.
The flamethrower will get usage.
I mean, it was just crazy. So we set this. So we're supposed to start at 9. It's now closer to 10. They're all eating dinner. They've been there since 6. Now it's 10.
Dude.
So, they're eating. Oh, the menu was like alligator, venison, like snake. It was like crazy. And then I'm not going to go on. It was
a good time was happening.
It was awful. It was they handed me a wad of cash. Everyone was very nice. Thank you so much. And then, we left, and we just sat in the car, and we were just like, what was that,
That's
man?
wild.
And then you're just like, I swear, at one point, we both like, what are we doing? I have an education. Like, Like, I wanted to reconnect with people that hurt me at one point. Like, it's okay. You can never hurt me as much as I was just hurt up there. It was horrible. It was horrible, man.
But you almost think you're like 500 people. They do only do this once a year. It's going to be great, you would think.
The light was when they put the cookies out and the coffee. That was the light. So I was supposed to do so it was supposed to be an hour show. Brian was going to do like 25. He got to about 15 and he was just like, Tim, I'm done. And he just said, that's literally what he said on the stage. I'm done. I said, because I'm on, it's fine. And I went up there. I did 30. I did a hard 30.
Yeah.
And the cookies and coffee were out. And when I'm getting heckled by one guy, this Italian guy's like, hey, the cookie's out. You won't get me a coffee. I go, so I'm yelling at him, and I'm like, you know what, folks? Everybody wants their coffee. I think we all had a great time. They all clapped, and I got off. They handed me a nice wad of cash, and I just thank the women, all the women that were working like volunteers. They were like, thank you so much. You're very funny. And then we left, and we just got in the car, and we were both just like reevaluating.
Dude, your entire life, yeah.
His closer was everybody go enjoy their cake.
Yeah, literally.
That's wild,
Yeah,
man.
it was
That is
nuts,
wild.
man. Like, you're up there, you're like, someone's gonna take a swing at me or something. Like, it was. It was I mean, now I'm laughing about it, but you get left, you were just like, what am I doing? And then, of course, my wife's like, I don't care. Give me the money. Like, we have bills to pay. Like, she puts it in the envelope that gets deposited so, my son can have guitar lessons and my other kid can go to boxing class and my daughter can go to gymnastics. It's like, she's like, I don't care if you bomb. I'm like, all right, well, my feelings were hurt. I've been to some bad ones, but that was...
But you've also been on some good ones where, like, you're
sure, everything here has been pretty good.
But headlining the Borgata, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah. Yes, there's been great ones. No comic thinks of the great ones.
Yeah, I know.
Right, you admit there were great ones, Tim.
Like, those
are the ones you don't remember, right? You're like, why don't I remember? Like, it went fine.
Right,
it went fine. It was okay.
You know me long enough where I hate myself enough where I don't ever think, like, my wife will be like, I could crush and I could come home and she'll be like, how'd it go? I'm like, that was fine. You know, that's just how I am. I'm not, there's comics that are like, yo, they're on Facebook and they're like, I just murdered 900. And I'm not that guy.
Right on.
At all. That's why I'll never be famous. I don't do the work on that side because I'm busy with other work. But I remember the horrible gigs. Like, I can tell you every horrible gig of my life.
Detail by detail through the top 10
like,
worst
I
gigs,
don't even
probably,
think
right?
of the best gigs. Like, I can think about them. Like, those gigs I did with John Panette that were, you know, where you were like, oh my God, I'll never experience that again. And then there was gigs, you know, I did it when I started it, like my first road gig was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I'll never forget. I was doing comedy.
Comedy Zone?
6 months. No, it was a gig in the downstairs of a restaurant. You stayed at a motel. It was. I remember
less than zero.
It was. You know, you drive all the way there. You're excited. I'm gonna open up for another comic that's been doing this a long time. It was like I got to the hotel the first night and I'm like, I don't want this in my life. Like I'm out. Like this.
You knew right away.
Oh, I could hear people being murdered next door. It was just like, you know. Then you get to the gig. The whole wall that you were standing on was mirrored. It was a walk-in, so there was no seating.
Yeah.
There was no security, and you're in the Harrisburg, which 10 minutes outside Harrisburg is like Alabama.
That's where I was.
Oh, okay.
Dude, I did Cumberland County. What was it? It's right by Harrisburg. It's
so I was getting people from farms. Like one guy that so this is my first road gig. I had to do more than 15 minutes, which I only really hadn't. I like just stretch and do 25. I'm like, great. And this guy just looks at me. He's just sitting and he just in a chair. Like he pulled it away and he had his hat on backwards and he puts the chair like that and he watching me like this. And he goes like this. He goes, I'm going to take you home. Can I say this?
Yeah.
I'm going to take you home, and I'm going to fuck you.
Wow, bro.
Whoa.
Or something like that. And I was just like, what? Like, and he was like, yeah, man. He goes, I fuck my goats. I'm going to fuck you. Like, he was just trying to mess with me. He was
Yeah, but still.
And I'm just like, like, I didn't even have anything to say back. I'm like, this guy.
Yeah.
You're like, guy.
Yeah. You're like, I just dress like this. I'm not really like that.
No, I don't even know if I was dressed. I mean, I was poor, so I guess I was dressed as best I could. So I go, and I'm even more poor now, I guess. But yeah, I was probably dressed like I normally do. Like, so I just laughed, and I'm like, oh, he's serious. And then and then he stood up, and I realized, I could beat the living hell out of this
sweet.
guy. Yeah.
Sweet.
So I just laughed, and then the bartender was like, no, he comes every week and he does that.
Oh my God.
I go, and no one asked him to leave. They're like, no, that's the problem. This is a giant, colossal failure. And he goes, and the sad thing is we get good comics in here. Because the comic that I think was Brad Lowry closed, and he was like a veteran that'd been around forever, and he did fine, but he's like, this isn't fun. Like, this is just money.
Dude, I forget the town, but it was right next to Harrisburg, and we were in Holiday Inn. I was with Mike.
Oh, dude, I know it. I know exactly. I know that Holiday Inn.
Yeah,
I've been to
Mike,
music shows there.
Mike Gaffney. And,
Mike Gaffney, sure.
And the general manager comes out, was like, listen, that table of 12 over there, it's their birthday, so we want to come out and sing happy birthday. I'm assuming in the middle of the show, I go, I'm assuming that's a bad idea. I go, absolutely not. And then, dude, Gaffney goes up and destroying, and any momentum, you just pump the brakes. Candles come out. There must be 50 candles on top of it. And she's like, and orchestrates the whole thing. Happy birthday. Gaffney just looks at me like, we're done.
Man.
Gaffney just looked at me like, this is brutal.
Yeah,
man.
that's crazy.
Why do they make, and I've been at comedy clubs that have made those mistakes.
Yeah, you're like, dude, it's not hard.
Dude,
That-
it's crazy.
That's
it's
when
crazy.
you know a comedy club's going to go at it. Like, I mean, I was at a comedy club
New
once that-
Cumberland.
Yeah, that's it, dude. That's it. That's
Yeah.
exactly
I
what
said
was
Cumberland County. That was
thinking.
wrong.
Yeah, New
Sorry.
Cumberland. That's
No,
it.
I was at a comedy club once. I was headlining, and I just started headlining. Like, I just started getting these littler clubs.
Yeah.
And they go, guy wants to propose to his girlfriend.
Here we go.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we are.
Ask Todd Berry what he
in
thinks
be-
about that.
Either in the beginning of the show, he wanted to do it in the beginning of the show, but he didn't have courage, so he wants to do it like right before you come on. He thought it'd be cool,
yeah,
and
great
then we'll
timing.
calm everybody down. I went, absolutely.
What do you
not."
think about this order?
Yeah, I go, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
I'm thinking bathroom break, wedding
Well,
proposal, Tim Krompier.
He's gonna do it.
He did it anyway.
I just
So
wanted
the
your
MC
blessing.
goes up.
Yeah.
Before I bring up the headliner, Barry wants to talk to his girl. Well, Barry's girlfriend was not thrilled about being proposed to,
Kidding me.
and she just
It's a no for me, dog.
Why are you doing this right now?
Whoa.
And she took the ring, and then they brought me up. The room was just like, what the fuck? And they're like they're here, and I'm right there.
Oh,
And I'm just like, well, and he's just like, but I remember I was at that point where I'm just like, yo, they made that mistake, not me. If I bomb right now, they could tell the booker I bombed all they want, but the fact of the matter is I was just set up to fail.
Yeah, that's on
and
them.
that's all it is.
That's on
and
them.
I'm like, so she ends up getting up and leaving. He leaves, and then I could talk about them.
Oh,
thank
there you
God.
go.
I was just like, well, who'd rather go upstairs with me right now to watch that instead of listening to my act? And then the whole place just went nuts.
And we're back. Oh,
and
wow.
we're back. And
wow.
I think I was
That's amazing.
I think I was single then. It was like crazy. Oh man, I have so many stories like that. But you're just like, when the club's setting you up to fail like that, that's when you're like, what?
Yeah, it's bonkers, right?
I'm like, or I could have a great set and he could do it afterwards and everybody's happy.
Yeah. Has a couple more
Which is
drinks.
what happens at a Soul Joel event.
Yeah.
That's right. But you think about it, like we talked about this, like it's not that hard to put all the ingredients and then bake a cake.
Not hard at all.
It's not hard at all. We need lighting, we need sound, one mic.
Yeah.
That's it.
Problem is you need somebody that gives a shit.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the problem with all these places. You got a lot of managers and stuff coming in, and they have no vested interest in it.
Yeah.
Like,
They just want to sell the booze.
the asshole in the front wants to propose to his girlfriend. He paid $100 to come here. Just
Right. He'll be here next Friday. You
Okay.
won't. Let's do this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, whatever. It
Yeah,
is
it's
what it
crazy,
is.
man. Yeah.
But traveling with John Panette, though, was that like hot knife through butter?
As far as the audiences,
Yeah.
Most of the time,
But sometimes they're only there to see him.
they were always there to see him. So you got to realize the first run I went on with him. So the first time I worked with him was at a comedy club. So that's different because they know, the club knows there's going to be a host, there's going to be an MC, and then there's going to be John.
Right. They know the drill. Yeah.
So also though, when you're doing a comedy club with somebody who's such a huge draw, where there's people, they're making up tables. I mean, the first time I worked with him was like a weekend, and then he came back the next whatever it was, and they booked him a Tuesday through Sunday. Every show was it was like the only
That's
night
a week.
we didn't work. I think it was Thanksgiving week, and the only night we didn't work was Thanksgiving
That's
night.
incredible.
Makes sense.
I didn't really know him that well. That's when he saw me. I was on every show, and he was like, I got to write a special. I like the way you write. Can you help me? And I was like, sure, but I didn't take it seriously, and I wrote for him then. And then, like, that Monday, he called me, and he said, my manager's going to call you tomorrow and send you dates. And I'm like, okay, not thinking that was going to happen either. His manager called me.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so
Yeah, right.
so it all went like that, right? So So the first year I didn't know how to open for him. I didn't know what he wanted. I'm nervous. I'm very nervous.
Heck yeah.
I'm a feature basically.
He's a well-established headliner at this point. Right?
He was probably. I mean, he would do certain clubs, but mostly just theaters. He loved clubs though. He knew there was no money in it really for him, as what he could do in a theater. But he loved doing like hilarities in Cleveland. Like there were certain places he really liked to go to.
That's cool.
But anyway, I go, and it went well, and he was great. There was some nights where you were like, oh, I remember being in Green Bay with him, and he told me, it was like, he goes, the further we get into the Midwest, the harder it's going to get. I'm like, really? He's like, we're going to, because we did. Then we went, I don't remember where we went, but then we ended up in Green Bay for like a Sunday matinee, like a 6 o'clock.
Are you flying or are you tour busing it?
No, we flew, and then
Okay,
there'd always
okay.
be like maybe he had a tour guy that was driving us. Sometimes I would drive. If it was just like East Coast, he would fly into New York, and they were like, "Can you rent a car and go to the Tarrytown?" Yeah, it's 2 minutes away, and they would pay for everything, and then they'd pay me extra. I'm like, great. So so we get up to Green Bay, and it's like we'd done like 5 shows around. Every show was great. The night before we were somewhere else, it was very well for me. Now it's hard because they don't know who I am. It's my first run with them. He goes, yeah, Green Bay is going to be.
Any other openers or just you? It all depends.
You mean with me on the
yeah.
show?
Yeah.
Just at comedy clubs.
Okay.
You get like a local host.
Yeah, like usually a local host. Never at a theater. I think he had an opener that he had for like a year in Canada when I couldn't go.
Okay.
Because I just had my first kid, who was really funny, really nice guy. I met him he moved to LA for a little while. But anyway, so yeah, so
what happened in Green Bay?
Oh, I did fine, but he's like, you got to be like, you got to be Christian clean for this.
Oh.
And I was like, I go, John, I'm clean, but I'm not Christian clean.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. We're exhausted. And he's like, I can just go. So, I did my time. I got my last. But I was used to, at this point, I was hammering. Like, it'd take me a couple minutes, but hammering. I curtailed my act just to hammer.
And he didn't care. Like you killed.
No, he see me kill, he
wanted you to kill.
Yeah, oh.
That's what I mean.
That was a huge thing with him. He's like, I see openers, guys get openers that don't know what they're doing because they don't want them killing. And he goes, I want you to do better. I want you to do better than me. He wanted.
That's awesome.
John was so giving. John would stand on the side of security would walk us up to the theater to get to the stage. Mm-hmm. He would introduce me.
Really?
Some guy sent me a video. He would do sound of God or whatever, and he was like, hey, jump at the whole place would go nuts.
That's
and then
awesome.
He'd be like,
That's
all right,
rare,
I'll be
man.
out later, but this guy coming up right now, and then he'd say 15 jokes about me, and they'd all be laughing. He was 135 pounds before he came on tour with me. Now he's pushing 195.
Nice.
He's skinny. He's still skinny, and I can't stand him, but he's really funny, and he's one of my favorite comics. You're gonna love him, and then he'll bring me out. So that helped a lot.
That's super cool.
A lot. Clubs was different because clubs he wouldn't do that. So and clubs can be a lot more rowdy. But
yeah, it's a different deal.
it was some nights were just once I figured it out, and then he was like, I got to bring you back out again. We're gonna go back out again. The summers we usually didn't do anything. 1 or 2 gigs in the summers, like beginning of summer, and then he goes, you write a lot, try to have new. So I would try to have a new 20, at least 15 to 20, while I was writing for him. But then as we became friends, we became closer. He'd watch my act, and he'd be like, do this too. And then it's like, I'm like, oh, I got John Panette writing for me. Like, it was like ridiculous.
Amazing.
So
Wow.
And for me, writing for him, people are like, how do you write for a guy like that? It's like, I'm like, I write everything down that he says. I have like a template of all his bits, and I jump to that template, and he'll do 16 different punchlines for the same bit that he did the night before, just off because it was all off the top of his head. I'll write all those down on everything, and then write what I think's funny, and then it might become a whole new bit that goes into some. So then we go back, and I'll write that, and then I type it all up, and I send it out to him, and then he'll be like, oh, I did that thing that way, and I did this thing that way. So that's just kind of happened. It wasn't like I sat there and wrote jokes for him. I sat there and tried to steer his jokes and then add my jokes into it, and then that's how it happened. And it was just really, once I figured out how to do it, it was a lot easier, because he could start a bit, get 3 laughs and not finish it, and then jump somewhere else, and then 20 minutes later go, oh, what was I talking again about the PC Richards? And then the whole place would go nuts, and then he'd finish the bit. I'd never see, and I'd say, do you do that?
Like that a little
yeah,
bit.
I go, do you do that on purpose? And he'd be like, nah, my brain goes somewhere else, which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Right.
I saw him once talk about, we were doing a Comedy Central in the park.
Yeah.
I was just there to help him. We did a whole sketch thing beforehand. I was in all the sketches. I wrote the sketches with him, and we were in them.
Oh, cool.
And then he was kind of in a bad place at the time, which he could be, as you know. He had a lot of demons. And a big air balloon, like a Zeppelin. What is it called? Like the Goodyear blimp.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like middle of the day, the audience is college age, which he was nervous about. And I'm like, John, you're funny. Like, you're going to nail it.
Right.
It was him and Gaffigan.
Oh, jeez.
And he looks up at the balloon right as I'm behind him. He's going to walk up the stage and he goes, oh, look, I'm going to talk about that. I go, no, just stick to our set. Just do the opening joke. And he just looked up and he started talking about it. Nobody laughed for like 5 minutes. And then he went right. Then he tried to flip into something else. And then at one point he hit into the set and he did fine. But that's how he could be. And his manager looked at me and I go, that's not what and his agent, and we're like, and I go, that's not. They go, no, we know. I go, I'm like, because you saw that we wrote the whole thing out. But John does what John wants to do. And that's what makes him brilliant, though. I said, that didn't work, but that's what makes him brilliant.
Yeah.
And y'all got to realize that. And they were like, we're just happy he's here.
Yeah, right. Nice.
And I was like, me too. But yeah, that was a roller coaster of a 5.5 year roller coaster of
It's been wild, man.
emotionally great and emotionally, you're happy 1 minute and you're crying the next minute. It was like it was very. I used to go out and my wife was like, you have so much anxiety when you're about to. I'm like, yeah, because I don't know what it's going to be. It's either going to be the best week of my life or it's going to be just a struggle. You just didn't know what you were walking into.
Who was showing up?
Just with him, yeah. Like, is he sober right now? Is he doing, And you become like, and I used to say to him, and then I always could tell by what tour manager he had where he was.
Oh, interesting.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there was one guy that was the regular guy, our good friend, when he was with I'm not going to name production companies, but it was a certain production company. There was one guy, and then there was when we had gigs at like I showed up to a casino once. We were going to do.
And they all happen in the same year. It
It
wasn't
could be
like
2 months apart. I could go out for, I didn't.
So it wasn't like this period of time he was with this person, this period
So I could come out and be
Holy
like,
cow.
well, no, sometimes he was with the good people and he was, I could tell because he was my friend when he was teetering.
Okay.
Which I could see, where I could see him getting like, I'm upset and like, it's just handling life. Like if you know I know addicts because I've experienced it. Like they can't, people look at it like, what's wrong with them? Why can't they just not do that? They're so great. They're making all this money. They're idiot. But it's like, you're wrong.
not how it works.
They have no control over it. Their brains your brain's wired to make sense like that. Their brain's wired completely differently. It's a brain wiring thing. That's all I say. And,
it's like saying how to control schizophrenia.
Yeah, and I used to say
Exactly.
to him, exactly. And I'd go to him all the time. I'm like, I'll never tell you not to do something. I'll never tell you to do something. I'll tell you when you're being an asshole.
Yeah.
And he said, because he used to tell me that, he'd be like, if I'm being an asshole, can you please tell me? Especially when he was sober. Because he's like, I don't know when someone's being nice to me or not nice to me, or if they're being a dick. It's like, I don't want to take it the wrong way because I take everything the wrong way.
I see.
And like, and I've met a lot of sober people like that. I have a lot of sober friends that I used to be like, just you're a dick even when you're not drunk sometimes.
Oh, was he used to being just coddled? Is that what you're talking? Like, and he just didn't know?
No, he'd be like, someone come up to him, oh my god, like a lot of people would approach you, and he's like, is this person being an asshole right now? Like, just insecurity.
And
Like,
they become one giant
it's just an
exposed nerve,
addict.
too.
It's just an addict. Like, all right, and I'm like, no, that person's being really nice and complimentary and being very, and he's
Just
like,
over the
he's like, I
top, but-
feel that, but they're annoying.
Right.
And he's like, right, they're just being annoying. And then someone come in every now and he'd be like, I'm like, no, that guy's an asshole.
That's awesome.
Right.
That's
But
awesome.
it's just like, you just didn't, he just passed, his passing was just a few weeks ago, which was
Anniversary.
2 weeks after his birthday.
That's crazy.
Yeah. We had his birthday, which, it is what it is. And I still get messages, but this was the first year I don't think I messaged Larry, his manager, because it's at the point now, you're so busy, and I know it's that day, but I got 3 kids and just running around, and I always remember, especially Facebook, everything pops up.
Yeah,
Right,
So
right.
you
It's
can't
right
forget
there,
anything
yeah.
anymore. But it's just, but it was great. I mean, overall, people, I'm like, I wouldn't have changed it for the world. And not just the shows. We had fun.
That's so
Right.
Dude, we had fun. There was times where we would drive in the car where he was just, he could be crystal clean on stage. There was sometimes, but we'd get in the car and it would just be I mean, it was just, I'm like, this should be the show. He's like, if anybody saw me like this, they would go running for their cars. He had that thick Boston accent too. He goes,
Yeah.
Timmy, if they ever heard us in the green room, they'd go running for their cars. And I go, you're right. I go, but it's so funny. He's like, I know. It's great.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And he used to leave me voicemails where I would just be on the floor. Like, I'd be like, out in public, and I'd be like, oh, John left me. And it'd just be something. He would start in the middle of a sentence. He never said hi. Like, if I picked up the phone, he'd be like, hey, how's it going? He'd be like, I'd pick up the phone, and he'd be like, so Shakira apparently thinks that she, like, it's just something in the news, like, did you see the 5 housewife cunts? Oh, my God. And they'll just go on a rant for like 10 minutes, and they go, so how are you doing? And I would just,
Out of left field.
yeah, and I would just, it was just, but always call me middle of the, like we already had been talking for 10 minutes.
That's
and
awesome.
It was so funny. Like, those are like my favorite memories of him. And I mean, and some of the shows, like, I mean, we did a show at a casino once. It was like 5,000 people there. My wife came. It was, I'm looking out. I'm like, holy moly. And I opened up, and he introduced me. I opened up. Actually, I don't even know if he did introduce me to that show. He might have, because sometimes at casinos they had their own voice guy.
Oh, yeah.
So I can't even remember. And it went amazing. I got a standing ovation in the front. Like,
Beautiful.
100 people maybe stood in the front and clapped. And I introduced John, and John comes off, and John's like, Tim, just couldn't. And then he had a set. I thought the casino was going to fall down.
It's so awesome.
I'm not joking. I was in the room, and it was like shaking. People were laughing so hard. Every bit seemed like it was a closing bit. Like that's how good he was when he was on. The room was like shaking. He came off. He was just like sweating. He's like, "How was that?" I'm like, "How was that?" He could have done 2 hours, but they have like the union, and you got to be up. So like I had to do 20, and then he did like an hour and 10. Say,
Dude, that's so funny you say that, because you must be one of his mentees, because my Apple Watch, every time I'm in a loud, like the line dance or something like that, it'll tell me. When we started the podcast, Tim was telling that story so loud, and you and I were laughing so hard, it goes, if you do this for 30 minutes, you might lose hearing.
Oh, that's awesome.
I get that.
That's never happened in a podcast.
Sorry.
I go, yeah, keep it down. Apple's like, you might lose your hearing.
Tell
Tell Timmy to take it back and dial it down a notch.
Sorry.
I've got this crazy loud laugh.
Yeah.
He would kill sometimes so hard. Like, I remember once, this is a great story, we're doing Carolines, because he would still do Carolines. So we did I don't know what the days were, whatever. Say it was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Thursday, yes. Through Sunday,
Yes, I remember. It was Thursday. No, we didn't do the Sunday. Sunday we did. I still remember this. We went out to the Hamptons. There was a theater out there. It held maybe 800 people, and it wasn't good money. But John's like, apparently I got to do this because my agent told me everybody does it, but it's not great money, but I'm going to do it. So we'll go out. I was like, okay. Anyway, so Caroline's Nate Bargatze is hosting.
Oh, wow.
So I don't think he moved yet. I think he had moved out of New York and was back, or I don't remember what it was, but
he still had
hosting.
a foot in New York.
Yeah, like I don't know if maybe he said he was gonna move to LA. I can't remember what it was, but it was that time where he had just moved to LA, and he like I was like, oh, because I said, oh, who's gonna the Nate Bargatze, and John immediately would go, good, he wanted to know, because if it wasn't good, he would say, I want somebody else, and I go, oh no, this is gonna be great. I said, good friend of mine, you're gonna love him. He is. I said, he's so original, you're going to love him, John. So Nate hosted, and I said, John, you got to watch him. So John's like, oh, he's funny. That's cool. And then, Nate, thank you so much. Now, John had just flown in from Hawaii, so I remember he was like, he did a corporate there, and he was like, I'm a little off on the time. So he wasn't as chatty as he normally had been, but he was just very tired. You could tell, So me and Nate hung out, and Nate would be sitting with me on the side of the stage while I'm like jotting things down. Although I wasn't, we already had the special done, so I'm like just jotting things down. And we'd be in the green. So now we're in the green room, and he's like, "Do you need to be out there writing?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "I know exactly what he's gonna do." So every bit was like this huge applause, like maybe 15 minutes in, like just like an ending bit, because all his bits could be long. So Nate kept running out of the green room because he thought he was closing.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Like he'd run out. He's like, "Oh my God!" He'd run out. I go, "No, bro. I know what he's gonna close on. Don't." I go, "And he's gonna be at least an hour, and he's in great shape. This is gonna be an hour." And
Nate's worried about the impression he's gonna leave on John. Be like, "Dude, you left."
No. I said, "Nate, don't worry about it." He just kept running. No, and he'd run to the door, and I go, "It's this. No, that's just how it is."
Yeah, that's just what
he's
John
like,
does.
"What do you mean?" And I'm like, and he's in the club, and it's Caroline's packed. The heat was like. And, the room shake. Like I'm saying, like the room would shake. Like glasses are shaking.
Dude, middle of Times Square.
Yeah.
Glass. I mean, it was nuts. But I was used to it at this point. I'm like, no, Nate. just chill.
That's amazing.
I'll tell you when he's closing. And then we're talking for a while. And then I go, and he would look back and I go, I'd listen. I go, in the next 15 minutes, one of these is going to be the closer. Like I would know. And then he was like, but everything. And he kept running out and running back in. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, he's not. They all sound like that. He's like, jeez.
I remember that, like nervous energy, just like.
Yeah.
And you're listening, but you're watching. You're listening, but you're watching. I'm still listening to you, but I'm like worried about something else.
Man.
It was crazy. It was, And then we did that theater on the Sunday. This is why I remember it. The theater was like, Hamptons people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we get there.
Muffy, Buffy, and a bunch of sweaters.
Yeah, and like they're all there to see John Pedette. And John's like, "These aren't my people." But he goes, so I go, "How much do you want me to do?" He goes, "Do 20, 25, I guess, whatever. We're tired." I go, "Okay." So I'm 10 minutes in and I'm doing okay. But I'm like, okay.
Room's not shaking.
I'm not shaking the room. I'm doing fine. Like I'm getting laughs in all the bits, but I'm not getting huge laughs on all the bits. But I'm like, this is Sunday. This is an early show on Sunday. It's the summer.
No opener. John's
just me. I go out cold.
Yep.
He introduces me. I go out cold.
Probably a DJ before that, right?
So I don't know what it was.
No, I'm joking. It's the Hamptons.
Yeah, it's like it was like weird. So it's a beautiful theater. Yeah. So I go. So then I look. I'm John's now side stage, and he's watching me, and he's laughing. Because he knows I'm. So now I just roll. I'm like, all right. So I roll up my sleeves and I just start every joke like bang, bang. I do, and I finally the last 10 minutes I'm doing well, and I get them really good. I was just like not gonna give up. I'm dripping sweat, which I never was. Like I'm like running up and down the stage. I'm doing animated jokes. I'm doing things. I went into kid stuff that I normally wouldn't have done. Like I'm doing everything. I did an hour and 30 minutes. Like that's how much I felt like I did.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Worth
Like
of jokes.
I
in
felt
20
like
minutes.
that's all long. But by the end, I know. And I'm like, oh man, he's either gonna be pissed or he's not. Because I did 5 minutes over or whatever. So I introduced him.
So you did 30.
I did 30. I'll never forget it. 30 on the dot. I introduce him. He walks out. He always would hug me.
And whisper
He hugs
something?
me. He goes, "Thank you so much. Thank God. Thank you so much for doing that." And I come off, and his tour manager's like, "Yo, he was watching you laugh." He was like, "Thank God he's doing this," because he knew right away that audience sucked, and then he murdered. And I was like,
but because he murdered because you did what you did.
he was gonna do well anyway because he was a genius. But I mean, he realized that audience needed to be beat. He's like.
And he's not giving himself enough credit, obviously. From
No,
the start.
I beat them to death.
That's incredible.
And then he was like,
exactly.
But a lot of guys wouldn't have said anything.
Right,
I've done that for other people.
They would have felt the heat. They would have got out of the kitchen. I know someone like that.
But they were like, yeah, I've done one. They don't say anything, and John was just like, he's like, thank you. He goes, that's why. And he come out afterwards. He comes backstage and he said to me, "That's why he's my opener." And I went, "Well, that's very nice. You
That's
didn't have to
beautiful
say that."
thing.
And he used to.
He said that to the audience.
He said that he said Tim Krompier folks that used to, they appreciate what he just did, whatever. And then he came back to me and said, "That's why Tim Krompier is my opener," which I thought was very nice in the green room to
That's
say.
a
So he was.
beautiful thing.
I want to just say, of all the demons and then people have them, and I worked with comics that had more than him. He was a beautiful person when he was. Even when he wasn't sober, but when he was sober, he was a beautiful person. But even when he wasn't, he was just he was battling.
Yeah,
It was
man.
a battle. It was a fight.
Yeah.
Right? You know, and these guys are fighting. And anytime I see somebody struggling like that, I'm like, it's a fight. You know, they're on. Like, I don't know. It's like, it's a fight, man. They can't help it.
Yep.
It's not me. Doesn't mean you have to deal with it.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Because you don't. And I wouldn't deal with it. I would deal with it as much as I had to. But I would say, but I'll say that to people that are struggling with people that they know have addiction. Like, you don't have to deal with it, but just know they're not themselves. Like, that's not their. That's not who
It's
they
not
are.
just a switch again.
No, and I'm like, I don't like to drink. I have one drink, and I'm
Yeah.
like, whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Dude, before we get to any Alan, Alan's got some questions. But
Oh,
dude,
sorry.
so
we're good.
one of the funny things that over the years that I've noticed in like the riders and stuff, and I actually told to Ben Bailey. So Ben, one of the first shows he did was at my place in Royersford,
Okay.
in the Dome, and dude, it spread and was like enough juices that I went to Wegmans and they didn't have it in all the ingredients in one juice. I had to get 2 juices, so I had to go somewhere special, and I get the whole spread, hummus and all this stuff. And he goes, "What is this?" He hadn't been on the road. He forgot that like what his rider was. He goes, "This is my little test to see who gives a shit in this business." And he goes, "I'm sorry." He goes, "You're a good dude."
Yeah.
He
Because
goes,
you went
"Thank
out
you
and
so
did
much."
it.
And I got over that. Did not to say that John would have done anything like that, but did he ever do something universally to test people or
No, it's
throw
funny
it out
what
there?
about John's rider.
Yeah,
He thought people that did that were total assholes.
Oh, this guy's awesome.
No,
he
but
was
that's
like-
interesting.
He was
I
like,
just-
"Who's the?" He's like, first of all, he goes, "It's not like I'm paying for it. Anything like that usually comes out of
It's
the
still the
Right,
expenses.
right.
It's yeah. So he's like, I'm not. Do you know what John's rider was? He would call me like, "What do you want on the rider?" And I go, I don't know. You know what I like, John? I said, I like Coke in like a glass bottle. Not hard to get.
Yeah. I do notice, like from the gun or from a can, from the bottle, it all like it tastes different.
So he never said.
same product,
Absolutely.
but it tastes different.
And then
Absolutely.
he goes, "Timmy, you know what? I like Coke in a bottle too."
Oh, that's awesome.
I go, "Cool." He's like, "Yeah,
What a kid.
We'll get some Coke in a bottle."
Yeah,
I go,
yeah.
"What else do you?" I go, "I don't know. What do you want?" He goes, "I like peanut M&Ms. Do you like?" I go, "Yeah, peanut M&Ms." And he goes, "All right." So like, and then, we'll get some cold cuts and we'll make some sandwiches.
Yeah.
That was his rider. We'd have Coke, and a lot of
so
time
funny.
they
I
wouldn't
love
even
hearing that.
And a lot of time they wouldn't have the Coke in the bottle.
Yeah,
And who
yeah.
cared? And he'd be like, "There's soda." And then sometimes it would be terrible. And he never. I never heard him go, "This is bullshit."
Right,
Never
right.
once did I see. I mean, I've seen stuff where we got there and they're like, he wanted deli meats with sandwiches and like.
And how hard is that?
And it was the grossest. And he's like, "I'm not eating any of that shit."
But you're in Green Bay.
Yeah.
At least the
Green
cheese
Bay,
was good.
one hotel, one restaurant. Yeah, the Brett Favre sports bar was not a joke. That was the restaurant.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Brett Favre sports bar right next to
course.
the hotel.
Yeah.
The only thing he would ever get a little diva about, and he had every right to, was he liked
Sound.
No, that was it. Given
Yeah.
the sound should be good.
Yeah.
And you're doing theaters, the sound.
Yeah.
He wanted good hotels.
Okay.
He's like, he's
But
a
that
big,
I understand too.
big guy. He's on the road
Totally,
for
dude.
months at a time.
Yeah.
He's
Oh.
traveling with 15 bags.
Just no big
Big
bed bugs.
guy in
yeah, he's like,
Motel
I don't,
6
and he
beds does
doesn't
not
even
work.
like.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want a boutique hotel. Like even like nice boutique hotels. He's like, this is fine. It's nice, but he likes a Marriott.
You like to know what he was dealing with?
He
Is
just
that the thing?
knew like there's if I need something laundered, there's a laundry service. If I need, he goes, and I wanted room service. He goes, I don't want to go out to eat. A lot of times I'll get mobbed. Like anytime we went out to eat, it was like the restaurant knew he was coming and had a room. But we didn't randomly. Once in Cleveland, we randomly went to a Subway in the mall. And it was great because he didn't really get stopped that many times because they were like, "Why is John Purnett standing in the Subway mall?" Because that mall in Cleveland had a Four Seasons in it.
Oh.
I don't know if you remember, and gorgeous, and it was a great hotel. So like
Wow.
he loved the Marriott, loved the Four Seasons, but every now and then we'd stay at like this fancy boutique hotel, and he would just be like, "What's with this?" She'd call me, he's like, "Yo, you got a bed in your room?" I go, "Yeah." Like we stayed at when we were in Kingston was where the gig was. It was at a big theater, great show, and they put us up in like a log cabin place, like a place where like yuppies go retreat where like
Yes.
so you had your own
Yes.
like there was rooms but then there was cabins.
Yeah.
And I had a cabin. And he calls me, he's like, "Are you in a cabin?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I had a cabin too." The cabin was fucking, it was on the stream. I had a big fireplace, the bearskin rug, a bed with a canopy on it. It was unbelievable. It was like where you go to make a baby, right?
Yeah, right.
So I go, "Yeah, I got one." He's like, yeah, they put me in. I was like, told him, I'm like, get me out. I immediately had to move me to a room. Like, he just wanted a room with a nice bed. Like, he didn't care about any of that shit. I had a suite once at a casino in Vegas with the not Montego Bay, whatever it was. I forget the name. A big one of those big casinos. And I called John. I go, oh, they gave me your room. Definitely, this is not my room.
There's been a mistake.
There's been a mistake.
Yeah, please, let's straighten this out.
This room's bigger than my house.
Yeah. A lot of square footage.
I'm not joking.
Yeah, it's just me.
There was
crazy.
There was a room just to watch movies in. It had couches all around. It was about a little bigger than this room. That was one room. He goes, no. It was for Lowe's. It was a Lowe's corporate. He goes, I told Lowe's everyone gets a suite. I said, great. And then I went up to his suite and I went, no offense, John, my suite's nicer. And he goes, and he laughs. He goes, I don't care. I'm like, you have a gym in your suite and you don't.
What?
He goes, yeah, it was like an elliptical and wait, like they get a gym and he goes, think of that. They gave me the fucking gym and they gave you the viewing room. I go, yeah, it's hysterical. Like, it was unbelievable.
But that's the one thing he wanted. And like,
he wanted nice hotels. Like, that was, and that's not a diva thing to me. I was like, that's not bad. But the rider was hysterical.
Yeah.
And then he'd ask, this was the best part. He would ask, who was the comic here last week? Because a lot of times it was.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, what was on his rider? And then they tell him, he go, fucking asshole.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
That's so funny. He would just want to know.
You just want to know.
I love this.
Yeah, you just want to know what's. And they were like, yeah, you were easy. He's like, yeah, you think, what are you going to bring back here? You're not bringing filet mignons back. I'll have steak. I'll go back to my nice hotel and have dinner. I'll have a Coke with my friend.
Coke in a bottle.
Yeah.
Coke in a bottle, peanut M&Ms.
M&Ms.
And cold cuts. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
I've
it,
talked
man.
too much, I feel.
No, dude. That's why we're here.
This is good. If we don't ever get to my questions, it's fine.
Go to your
You know what I mean?
questions. I'm here.
All right. Which one?
Question 1.
Speaking of bringing the hammer.
Well, let's talk about your days of doing the movie live events with like John Cleese and all these amazing people.
Okay, sure.
I mean, so I wrote a list of people you did this with.
Okay.
Chevy Chase, too, right?
Dude.
Yep.
I have 8 names written down, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
It's John Cusack,
Yep.
Molly Ringwald,
Yep.
Carrie Elways,
Yep.
who is Princess Bride, if
Yep.
you don't know that
That was
name.
my first one. Yep.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
William Shatner,
Yep.
Chevy Chase, and Beverly D'Angelo at the same time.
Yeah. How'd you get that? Wow, that was one time. Well, maybe it was twice.
Yeah.
Christopher Lloyd,
Yep. Bunch with him.
John Cleese,
That was my favorite. Yeah.
and George Takei, who is Sulu.
Yep. And there's
Wow.
one you missed.
Oh, what did I miss? Which one?
Oh, I think there's more than one you missed, but one that always stands out to me because I loved him so much, and his name's it was Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, Tim.
No. He played the lead with Susan Sarandon, who is an amazing actor. And if you look at his resume, it's greater than most people's resume could ever be.
Yeah.
He was and I always knew him from Spin City with Michael J. Fox.
Yes.
He played the governor and
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
I can't
or
think of
the
his name, but I
mayor.
know exactly. I can see his face. Yes, he's
and
great.
he was such a nice guy.
Oh, that's awesome.
I can't tell you this guy because he's like, yo, these Rocky Horror kids keep me money, get me money every year because they keep this alive. So like we had this huge spread in the green room. He's like, did you eat anything? I'm like, yeah, I had some. He goes, he took all the food and drinks, everything down. He brought it down they got paid nothing. These Rocky Horror people do it for free. They love it so much. He brought it down and he put it in their green room. He's like, all the food goes to them. And they were like, thank you. It was great. And then we'd be on stage and he'd make sure that the cast stayed on stage. I didn't even interview him. He'd come out. He had like a burner reel that he'd run that was great. Of like he was the original Danny Zuko in Grease. Won a Tony for it. Yeah, he won 1 million Tonys. He was like, like they had a video of him and it was him and John Travolta singing at this live benefit. It was like
Jeez.
him singing with Barbra Streisand.
Come on.
It was Barry.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Someone Google it.
I'll do it.
Production, Google it. There's no one there. I'm just pointing to nobody.
Here goes production.
So, so he was, I remember him because we only did about 5 or 6 shows together. And I never did anything. I'd walk out. I'd introduce him. I'd thank everybody. I'd walk out. He'd talk to the crowd. I'd ask him 1 or 2 questions. He'd start interviewing all the people. Then he'd talk to me again. Then I'd tell 3 or 4 things funny might come out. Everybody would laugh. And then it was over. And I'm like, I can't believe they're paying me to do this. Like,
That's incredible,
He was
man.
great.
It
And
was
then
like an hour and a half.
Barry Bostwick.
Barry Bostwick. I don't know why. Sorry, Barry. You're the best.
He's amazing.
He was so talented and such a nice guy. Like, But
That's so cool.
such a cool dude. And some of the people were hard to work with, and some were great. John Cleese was one of the best experiences of my life.
Oh, that's amazing.
But
John-
and the same thing with Chevy Chase and Beverly D'Angelo. Those like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation people are so
It's like a cult.
yeah, it's like a cult.
Yeah, they're
They
hardcore,
came
yeah.
out. That audience was probably amazing.
So that
too,
was
right?
hard because I did not do them live.
Yeah, that was
That was a Zoom show during
That
the
was a
pandemic.
pandemic
They
show,
set,
yeah.
came in and set up a camera in my house, like a professional camera in my house. My whole family had to leave.
Did they? Oh,
Yeah,
really?
they took my kids out. Well, I live in a very small house, and I have 3 loud children. So they had I told my wife, skedaddle. And then
Daddy's got to pay his bills.
yeah, and it's hard because Chevy can be. He's not difficult. He's just his Chevy, and
Yeah.
if you don't know the rhythm that he could spurt anything out at any moment. And then putting Beverly on, and there's a delay. Beverly doesn't know me. I only did one other show with him live, and Beverly. So it was hard because she didn't know me the first time, and then when I finally said a few funnier things, and I had clips that we were going to run that I had in production, which was in a whole other state that we're running clips. Because I said, we got to run clips. We got to kill time. This isn't a live audience, so we're not getting any reaction from, I don't see anybody watching this.
Yeah.
Then there was literally a meet and greet afterwards where it was a Zoom meet and greet
Get out.
where I could see people that they were seeing us. Yeah, so it went great. I loved it. It was hard, but we did 2 or 3 of them. I can't remember. And they would come set the camera up. I think the last one I did, I'm like, I don't think I need the camera. I think I could just do it from my computer. But they're like, no. It's in the budget. So that was cool. He was cool. I wish I had done more live shows with him. He still does it.
Yeah.
They just use somebody else now.
Well,
That's a
their
whole other
mistake.
podcast. But that was one of my best moments of my. So
Zoom career.
yeah. Well, you see me on Zoom a bunch of times.
Oh man, yeah.
I bring it on Zoom. I don't care if anybody's listening. I do Zoom. I'm dripping sweat after.
Oh, I love it.
Well, it was like the John Panette story where he said he did an hour and a half jokes in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes,
He's the one that told me. He trained me to do Zoom. He was like, however many jokes you have to do, the minutes. Prepare to do double the amount of time because you're never going to get a standing ovation.
and there's no pause for laughter or anything.
No,
Yeah.
no pause.
People
You know,
are
so-
afraid to put their audio on. Some people are afraid to put their picture on. They put like a fake picture on. So you
Yes,
just
'cause they don't
so
wanna be- yeah,
I
yeah.
just didn't. I just did one.
Oh, really?
I'm still doing them every now
They're
and then.
back, baby.
I did a corporate.
They never left.
The first one I ever did, 2 weeks into the lockdown or a week into the lockdown, was a corporate sales guy who was giving some. His team had done good. He was trying to keep his team together. They were all. He said, "Well, you do it." I said, "Yeah, Venmo me." I went up in my room. I'm like, it went great. I was like, this is cool. And then that's when I was like, hey, anybody want to do something? And then we started talking, and then
Yeah.
you started selling them. I'm like, dude, let's go. I was like, I'll do this the rest of my life if I have to. I gotta make money. But it was just in my room, standing. I had pillows on my bed, computer, used this black background. I mean, just the funniest one we did was with what's his name? He was sitting in his chair the whole time. He didn't realize he was on camera. Oh, who was it? DeFeo, Mark DeMeo.
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 Oh, no way.
Who I love.
Dude. And he had retired from the NYPD.
Yeah, yes,
And he was
yes.
lighting it up.
Yeah. Do you remember that one? We do one.
Yes,
and
I-
DeMeo's sitting in a chair in front of his computer, so he's not supposed to be on yet.
Okay.
And he doesn't realize that he's on. Do you remember this? And he doesn't realize he's on. So I'm going, and I just see DeMeo in the corner, and he's like laughing at my act, and I'm like, and then I stay on, and then you introduce DeMeo, and DeMeo goes, "Yo, that was great, Timmy," and I was. Alex, I'm not staying on for you, Mark. I'm going. I left.
yeah.
It was so. I remember that was more
Priceless.
distracting, but but I'll go back. But I was saying about I did the first live show I did with Chevy. They had tried someone else, and they were like, "It's not." So they called me, and I was like, "All right," because I wanted a little bit more money than everybody else. Not a lot. $200 more. That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
He's making $80,000. I wanted $200.
Doesn't seem
more.
unreasonable.
I wasn't making even 4 digits. Let's put it that way. So I drive somewhere. I go in there, and I meet him. He comes in right before the show. I go, anything you wanted to? No, he didn't want to do any prep really. He was, he's not doing well right now. So he wasn't doing great.
Okay.
So we go out, and I just you're doing it. I had all my questions prepared. And I just kept running. And then I finally started just getting stuff out of him. I'm hitting jokes. When he wasn't, I was hitting. He would say something inappropriate, and then I would just go over the top even more inappropriate. And he was
Nice.
like, and he loved that.
Oh, that's great.
And then it went great. And I always, and when I would do a show like that, I would try to do a poignant story at the end.
Yeah.
To say, I'm gonna wrap up, but I just want to tell you my own experience, and then I would say the story, and hopefully it had something funny, and then I'd add like a little funny thing to it. And I did that for him. I can't remember what story I did. It was maybe Caddyshack with my brother or something. And then we just had a great time, and it went great. Standing ovation. I do my end bit, and I said, and I thank you for being here tonight. And the whole place, before I even said anything, jumped up. He gets it. He loves the live shows. He's like, we walk off. They walk us right into the green room, which is 15 feet from the stage. And he sits down. He goes, man. He goes, you are fucking funny.
Oh,
and I was
wow.
like,
Chevy Chase said that.
yeah. And I went, okay. I went, oh, thank you, Mr. Chase. He goes, no, you're great. Are you gonna do any more of these? I'm like, I'd like to. Then they walked the guy in that they use now.
Oh, okay.
Who they brought to the show to watch me interview him. They took my cards, they gave them to him, and then he went on the road with them. So I laughed. I'm like,
what a business.
I'm like, yeah, I didn't care. And then I ended up coming back to do it in the
I think I
pandemic.
know who it is.
Yeah,
but
and he's great. And I did and I'm sure he's great at it. And I did the pandemic ones with him. I ended up doing those. So yeah, it was a great experience. And then John Cleese, same thing. Met John Cleese. We went over questions. He was a prep guy. He wanted to talk to me. I'm like shaking.
Oh,
He was, for me, I was never more nervous than John Cleese.
dude, that's a big one, man.
That, for me, was the God.
That's
The God.
I
And
get
my
you. I
wife's like,
understand.
who's he? And I named 50. Oh, yeah. And I go, you don't understand what this is. I'm like, I'm getting there 3 hours early to do extra prep work. Like
Yeah.
this mean. So they would send questions in from the audience, and we'd go through the ones that he wanted to have. We'd have, oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that. Oh, I haven't. He'd be like, sharp as a whip, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And we go out and we have a show. And it was weird for me because I'm used to holding a mic like this for it, and he only does head mics.
oh, interesting.
And he's like, I like a head mic. And I'm like, oh, okay, that'll work for me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I never wore a head mic in my life. I've never worn a Bluetooth in my ear. So they put this head mic on me. It's got the little thing. I'm like, it'll be fine. It's going to be fine. He didn't want to sit in a seat. He wanted to sit in a stool because he's like 6'7".
Oh,
He's
yeah,
a
he's
big
huge,
guy.
yeah.
So we sat in stools. I've got a horrible back. I'm
Oh,
like,
no.
okay,
Oh,
it's
that's
fine.
tough. I'm with
but
you,
you're
yeah.
just on adrenaline. And it went. I hit every joke.
Oh,
This is what he says to me. We're about to be introduced. He's standing next to me. I'm at his belly button. He grabs my tie. He goes, "Don't you look smart?" And he goes like that to my tie. And I go, "Oh, thank you, Mr." And he goes, "Listen, I swear to God, he said this. He goes, "Listen, before we go out there, just so you know, if you get the joke, take it. Don't wait for me." He goes, "If you feel a moment, take the joke." And I went, "Never seen me before in his life." The other guy just said, "Oh no, he's funny." I went, "Okay, thank you, sir." And he's like, yeah. So we go out, and that was it, man. Like, we both, and it just was like tennis. Bop, 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 bop. Then he does this thing at the end where he started doing, I don't know where this came from. He just impromptu started doing inappropriate jokes because he hates how everything is politically correct.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he asked me, do I have one? So then I'm like, I don't know really a joke guy, but I have like a couple in my head.
Yeah, yeah.
So I do one, and then he did one, and I'm like, I'm out. Like, and then he doesn't. And then now he's like, and again, standing ovation. It goes crazy. We walk off. He hugs me. I'm in his belly. I'm crying practically. And he's like, that was great. He goes, you're so funny. And I'm like, okay, great. And I looked at guys, I go, I'm not doing any more shows. I'm done.
yeah. Retire on
And you
top.
dropped the mic.
I'm not working anymore. I'm not doing stand-up anymore.
Right.
I'm moving to a cottage in Montana. And there'll be like a little thing coming out of it. I don't need to talk to any of you people anymore. Like, that's how it was. And we did like 15 shows together over that 2 months or whatever. Like, we just
so cool.
and it was a tough time, man. I had little kids, and I would be like in Boston and then drive home to Long Island, bring my kids to school, and then drive to the next spot. Wow. And he's like, you're out of your mind. And I'm like, yeah, man. I was just drinking Red Bull all the time, and it was awesome. It was, every show was just, and then it got better and better because now
You're in your groove.
and then he's interviewing me. It was
Dude,
awesome.
Come on.
Yeah.
It was nothing better than that. And then that ended.
Dude, I was just about to say,
incredible.
man, we're not gonna make you work anymore. That was great.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
we
Thanks
done?
for doing this, man.
We'll do another podcast where I'll tell you about all those celebrities that I can't stand.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll put that on the Patreon when we start it.
Another episode of Bring 'Em Out. Alan,
Thank you,
Tim,
man.
Joel.